When a man discovers a new hobby, such as stamp collecting, his life can change dramatically. He suddenly starts wearing odd clothes, speaks in a different language, and spends all his time buying stamps. It's a hilarious transformation that may leave his friends and family perplexed. But not Walter White. No. Walter White, the protagonist of Breaking Bad from 2008 to 2013, is perhaps one of the most intriguing television anti-heroes of all time. Breaking Bad follows Walter White, a high school chemistry teacher who starts cooking meth as a means of providing for his family. When Walter discovers he has lung cancer, he enlists the help and support of ex-student junkie Jesse Pinkman, colluding in an improvised RV lab to cook in the new Mexican backcountry. What begins as a quick cash scheme to support Walt's family after his death quickly turns into a wake-up call, proving to Walt that his midlife crisis can be relieved by a life of crime, which he coincidentally discovers a knack for. Walter has many positive aspects, but he also appears to have many negative aspects. He's very easy to like or dislike. And with that in mind, what makes Walter one of the most intriguing walking-talking paradoxes? The good. The inherent need to be a good father. One of Walter White's primary motivations as a person is obviously his willingness to be a good parent to his children, and as the story continues, it becomes clear that this includes being a parental figure to Jesse as well. Even though Walter isn't the most ideal father, he does his best to guide his children in the right direction and is willing to put himself on the line for them when they're in peril. The bad. The insatiable thirst for power. At the beginning of the story, it is clear that Walt has principally given up on life and lacks self-confidence. But once he starts making meth, the pendulum does seem to swing far too far in the wrong direction. Walter develops a profound sense of entitlement and dominance and actually starts to seek greater power and authority because he believes it is his right. The good. His willingness to do the dirty work. Walter is actually incredibly caring and considerate when it comes to the people he loves, despite his sometimes contradictory behavior. He undoubtedly has a violent streak at times, but ultimately he repetitively puts himself in situations where he could do absolutely awful things, simply because he doesn't want Jesse to be compelled to do them instead. The bad. Zero compassion. While Walter demonstrates a disposition to make difficult and unfathomably cruel decisions for Jesse's sake, it's clear that his empathy for others extends only to those in his inner circle. He commonly sees others as nothing more than instruments to get what he wants, and he's willing to hurt or even kill people if he believes that their hardship will benefit him in some way. The good. Intelligence. Although Walter spent the majority of his public life as an under-recognized high school chemistry teacher, his profession in the drug trade illustrated that he was an unparalleled chemist. Walt and Jesse would not have succeeded in getting as far as they did without Walt's insane intellect, and he and his family would not have survived his venture into the drug world either. The bad. Arrogance. Undoubtedly, the primary story arc of Breaking Bad is Walter's experience striking the absolute peak of the drug trade, and then having it all fall apart on him. And sadly, he could have gotten out of the drug business relatively unharmed if he hadn't overstated his own power and abilities. Walter's arrogance led to Hank's death, Jesse's imprisonment, and the ruination of his entire family's life. The good. Audacity. Even though Walter White becomes very pompous by the end of the series, he is a very straight-laced guy when the series first begins, and it's clear that he's frightened of dealing with insane criminals. However, despite his fear, he not only engages with them, he winds up scaring the pants off of them quite a few times as well. That kind of bravery in the face of imminent death is captivating. The bad. Narcissism. Walter is an undisputedly gifted and brilliant character. Not only does he recognize this, but he also appears to overvalue his own worth and power in a variety of situations. He's an astounding meth cook and a problem solver, but he's willing to put every aspect of his life on the line to demonstrate his worth as a drug lord and chemistry genius. The good. His love for his loved ones. Although Walter clearly allowed himself to become engulfed in all of his most negative personality traits and impulses by the end, the undeniable fact is that he began his journey with good intentions, and no matter what happened, he never lost sight of those intentions. Walter was always willing to go to any length to ensure that his family was taken care of after he died, and when it came down to it, those he loved were always his priority. The bad. His chicanery. Walter is actually a very loving and kind person, but he has just as many negative traits as he does positive ones. Despite the fact that he genuinely cares about those around him and is willing to go to great lengths to help them, his worst trait has to be his eagerness to manipulate and hoodwink them for his own gain. In conclusion, Walter's descent into darkness is the show's premise. The change that takes place in Walter is so incremental, so sentient, that viewers are extremely reluctant to surrender their fondness for him. Despite the spectrum of destruction he's left in his 2-year crime spree, his transition is so slow and torturous that you can't help but feel sorry for him. Because his transition is so incremental, many viewers are uncertain if they like or despise Walter White. Without this kind of humanity, Breaking Bad would have plunged into mediocrity and become lost in the sea of average, cookie-cutter crime dramas. Following Walt's evolution in its entirety allows the viewer to believe that he still retains a semblance of humanity at the end, keeping the viewer emotionally involved. This emotional attachment, whether positive or negative, with the protagonists and their narratives is ultimately one of the keys to the show's popularity.